this is just a little basic overview of the structure of today's webinar. We're going to go over startup and operating costs, and then we'll take a pause and do some Q&A. And then we'll get into business models, pricing, and profitability. We'll take a pause there, and then we'll go into customer acquisition costs. And so what type of expenses do startups incur, and what they are the first things that you'll be spending money on when you're working to endeavor to start a business. So that'll be your business formation fees, your permits and applications, inventory, marketing, working capital. Yeah, you name it, it'll come up. But these are some of the most frequent things and most important things that you'll run into when you're first starting a business. And the cost of goods sold is a very important metric for you to really internalize, because you're looking at how do I describe it? Your starting inventory and your purchases, what it costs for you to make something to sell to someone. So what we have here is a little breakdown of typical costs that you get, and you're taking you want to make sure that the cost of goods sold and the labor and your other costs give you at least a 20% profit margin. And some questions that you can ask yourself is to really get into the nitty-gritty of like what it costs for you to sell one product, and scaling that, and bringing your costs down, and keeping it very efficient with how you spend money, especially in the beginning, because most businesses are spending more money than they're bringing in while they're building their branding and all that. So that's something to be very cognizant of in the beginning, especially, but especially as you, even more so as you grow, because once you develop those foundational principles, as your business grows, you're going to want to ensure that you continue those practices so that you don't spend money unnecessarily just because you have it. So get a little more into some of the types of costs that you run into when you're after your startup costs, your ongoing costs. So your fixed costs are things that are independent of your sales volume. No matter how much you sell, you're going to be paying these out. So rent, property taxes, depreciation, insurance, salaries, things like that. Those will be fixed costs. And your variable costs are independent of dependent on your sales volume. Excuse me. So the more you sell, the more you're going to incur these types of costs. So inventory, materials, shipping fees, income taxes. Those are typical examples of things that will fluctuate based on how much you sell. Let's talk about different business models. And the subscription model is typically you'll have like a free tier, and based on the types of services and the various value adds based on what the company has tiered out in their value tiers, is how that model is built. And YouTube and Spotify and TV providers are good examples of that. B2B, they are, how do I describe? You sell for from one business to another. So you're serving the needs of another business or another industry. And Adobe, Shopify, and IBM are examples of that. Because, like, for example, with Shopify, they'll provide a platform for e-commerce sellers to sell. So they're helping business owners sell their products online. And for retailers, they're taking, they buy from wholesalers, manufacturers, and they sell at a markup. So your department stores, Target, eBay, manufacturing, they are the ones that take raw materials and create the product to sell. They can either sell to wholesalers or to retailers or to directly to the customers. And with the franchise model, you take the success and branding of a successful company, and you build out a template, and you create this template you give to other business owners who can license the name and license the branding that you've built for an upfront fee and an ongoing royalty fee. So some examples of that, like, so McDonald's is the most famous example of that. Now, to go to that question you were talking about with breaking down the different items here. So the idea is to understand, so I'll get to this next slide actually, because we'll talk about it in the very simple example of a cookie. So if it costs you 50 cents to produce a cookie, and you want to understand the best way to price something, then you can take this cost of goods sold and divide it over by the product, the cost of the product. And you have what you should charge to maintain that your cost of goods be 32%. Well, let's sit on this one for a second. Does anyone have any questions in this regard? Okay. All right, so we understand. Okay. Now, if you want to price it out based on what you are going to, you have employees and you want to make sure that you have a service that you're providing, excuse me. So this prior example was a product and a good. Now this example is more of if you're providing a service for someone. Say you have a cleaning business and you have someone asking for a quote for 2 hours of work to clean a space. So you would take the cost of what you charge per hour for your labor times the time and divide that by 0.26. So it's roughly under, roughly over 4 times more than what you would make per hour you want to charge. So between like 150, 160 would be a good range to charge for that type of service if you're going to be making $20 an hour. And to kind of build this out a little bit more, to have a better understanding of how you would break down your costs. Say you were to sell 1,000 cookies, each at that price point that we had discussed earlier, keeping your cost of goods at 32%. Then your total revenue would be 1,560 for that day or whatever period. And your budget to pay out based on your labor costs would be $4.05 and 60 cents. So if you have one employee, or if it's just you, then that's for you. If you have more than one employee, then you would split that up how you agreed upon to be paying your employees. And your profit would be the 20% margin there. So you would take the 1,560 and multiply it by 0.2, and you would get 312. And why this is so important is so that you can know to price your item or service, and to determine your market, and to understand your business. And also to see that you're charging what your competitors are charging, and you're being competitively priced with what you have. So if you're spending too much, or if it's costing you too much to make something, then you have to retool and figure out why that is, or what it is that is causing that imbalance. And when you have it visually laid out that way, then you can organize that so that you are not so overwhelmed, especially as time goes on and you have a lot of invoices and a lot of accounts payable, accounts receivable that you can make those calculations upon.
Where you see the business model. So this model is like a very standard model, right? You're looking at a model that you have a 20% return. A 20% return is a very, very great return. And usually what this means is that for every dollar that you make, 20 cents, is a profit. Every 26 cents goes into your labor. So now for those that as you're starting up your business, if you do not employ anybody, most of the time you want to make sure that you're able to cover your cost of living with the budget that you have for labor. And why? Because usually labor is you're paying yourself, right? And again, like if you're depending on the business to cover your cost of living, then most of the time it's labor plus profit, and then the rest you're using it to reinvest into your operation. Meaning that like you want to reinvest 32% of your sales to purchase more inventory. I saw someone right now that they have a consulting, so it's a service-based business. You might have to reinvest into purchasing equipment that allows you to deliver this type of service, right? And right here, so keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, because like even though it's like a very standard, very ideal model, every operation is different as well. Sometimes sometimes some businesses don't have some operating expenses like rent, right? Some are offering services that don't need an office space, and now they have that standard budget that we usually allocate in the other as ideally as profit, but most likely, since you don't have rent, most likely you're spending more on your marketing, right? To establish your presence online, making sure that people know are able to find you. So again, these are very standard and very ideal numbers that we usually use to start the conversation of, okay, well, you're going to start a business, but more than anything, let's see if it makes sense, right? How can you determine your prices? So with that, I mean, I'll turn on to Tamer and talk. So this one is a good example of a product-based business, right? So the example right here is that you're opening up a cookie stand, and let's say you purchase all the ingredients that you need to develop or create your product. In this case, it's going to be a cookie. Then you calculate that each cookie itself is going to cost you 50 cents out of pocket. So based on this model, because our intention is to get a 20% return, we're gonna get 50 cents divided by 0.32, and then that gives us $1.56. So that $1.56 gives you a good understanding of, one, does your price make sense, right? And keep in mind that like now you understand that this is the minimum amount that I should be able to sell the product to have a potential of getting a 20% return. So now you start thinking like, who is my market? If I'm targeting a high income area, you're going to be questioned on why your product's so cheap, right? So in that case, now you're going to end up increasing your price to maybe $3. which is most likely is going to increase your profit margin, right? But point is like this, so this is the way that you start calculating or understanding of one, if your price makes sense, two, who is your market, and three, if you're able to reduce your cost of product, right? And then on the next slide, you're talking about a service-based business. So this one, so when it comes to service-based business, you most of the time you spend a lot more on labor, meaning that it's gonna as a service-based business, your expense is more on delivering the service versus purchasing inventory to deliver the service, right? So in a product-based business, you purchase more inventory, and then in a service-based business, it's going to take more time, more labor to develop versus your inventory. So in this case, like now, when it comes to a service-based business, now you got to also consider the amount of hours that it's going to take you to deliver that project, and you multiply that times the minimum payment that you're looking into charge to paying yourself. So like this example right here is that it's a cleaning service business. They calculated that like a small, I don't know, like a small hall is going to take 2 hours to clean, and they're gonna have someone that they're gonna be that's gonna help them, pay them $20 an hour. So now it's 20 times 2, which is 40 divided by 0.26. That gives you a price of 153, right? But it's obvious that most likely you're not gonna charge 153. Most likely you're gonna charge 175, or maybe you go up to 200, and you're going to start negotiating. You're going to introduce a quote. Maybe they try to negotiate. They try to bring it down to 150. You meet at 175. You already understand that your minimum charge is going to be 153. If the customer accepts 175, I mean, this is the power of that, right? Of this formula. So, but there.
And so, in addition to that, because kind of what you were mentioning here alludes to the question that's in the chat here about having a business model as a subscription service, but in a physical location. So like calculating the startup cost for that. Now, depending on, I'm thinking of like, say you have a gym and you are, you have the equipment and the materials there for people to work out, and you provide that for them, and it's a physical location, and you have that at a price. You factor in what it costed you to get all of those materials, and what it costs for your sales and marketing and all of that to bring people into the door. All the money that you spend, period, and kind of per customer based on where the that your pricing, like Luis was saying, that your pricing makes sense, and that you are there with your market, that on an ongoing basis you would have you'd factor all of those things in. So, and considering your what it would cost, or how much revenue you would have to bring in for you to begin making a profit, you'd have to think about how many people you would have to reach in order for you to achieve that. Equipment costs for the startup. Well, these are ongoing costs, like after you have paid in your startup costs and you have the equipment and you're already starting to make it, as for like making the product to sell. So like for the cookie example, they're not talking about well, it costs you whatever thousands of dollars to get the machines and the cookie batter and the dough mixer and all that kind of thing. That those are taken care of in the startup costs. So you have those things so that you can, so these ongoing costs of goods are going to be like the flour, and the sugar and the eggs and the milk and the chocolate chips and all the different ingredients that you're going to be putting in the cookies and depending on the kinds of cookies that you have. A very simplistic understanding of what it costs for you to get a customer. So the money that you're spending on sales and marketing, aside from your cost of goods sold and all that, and how many new customers you're getting in a period. So you're and I have an example on this next slide here. So for instance, you have a Google Ads campaign for 1 week and you spend $500. And in that time, in that 1 week, you're able to acquire 250 new customers. So you take the $500 you spent on the Google Ads spend, divided by 250 new customers, and you're spending about $2 to acquire a new customer. So and then you can take a A/B test and see if it's a good use of your money, if it's a good use of your time, if it's effective or not, what kind of metrics you're able to measure those things from. Online, you'll be able, when you do these sorts of ad campaigns and on social media or on Google Ads or on any of the platforms that allow you to advertise, you'll get very robust metrics, especially if you're doing e-commerce. You can also measure if you do like a direct mailer through the USPS, and you can kind of get if you spend $500 and you get zero, then your cost of customer acquisition is undefined. It means that you haven't figured out your market. You have more research to do. But that's not always a bad thing. At least you know what not to do. Commission-based business, such as an agent or in the service industry. Agent for what? So like you're getting work for other people as a like a manager for like an actor or a musician or some type of artist, or is it an agent like a real estate agent? A sports agent. Okay. Well, typically there is an industry standard uh, for agents that they request from their clients for their representation. You can, I would consult with people in your industry to see what the typical rate is. I think for agents, it's usually somewhere between you know 15 and 20%, depending on the value add. Um, but uh, that can vary depending on the agent and their network and their pull and their experience and those types of things. But and the clients that they serve and what they're able to get the results for with their clients. So, if you're able to say, I got my guy, a $200 million contract, I can do that for you. And you're able to back that up, then you'll be able to attract some so 20%. Oh, well, you're calculating that. Uh, I'm not sure. Now, you can do net. I'm not sure if people do gross or net. I think that's a good question. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you. Um, but agents typically have like some kind of certification process that they go through, so that like a CPA, for instance, so that they're able to be bound by law that they are working in the client's best interest. But I wish I had a better answer for how to calculate your percentages. But everything is negotiable in that kind of a world. So I'm not sure if they can do, depending on what your client is willing to accept, if you want to do net or gross, but yeah. Um, no, these are just some examples of some places that you can go for um, email marketing, social marketing, and online marketing. Each of these can be their own uh, discussion. Uh, yeah, I wonder what it is. Maybe maybe there isn't an industry standard, but I would try to find out, and just talk to people that are doing the work, that are willing to share that with you, and any professional organizations that with people with that expertise. um, I would look into it. But yeah, so like Google Ads, they have one of the largest reaches as far as their platform. Uh, and if you, based on what you're selling, who you're selling it to, and when you know your market really well and you know who's coming to buy from you, you can get really granular with the types of social media that they go on, so you can meet them where they're at. Uh, LinkedIn is a really valuable resource that you can tap into for B2B, for uh, establishing uh, industry expert knowledge that you can share in the form of content. Um, YouTube is also another place for that kind of thing. Um, and email marketing, you can go to MailChimp or Constant Contact or ConvertKit or Klaviyo or Hootsuite or any of those. And if you have your own website, you typically will have a place where you can built into the platform itself that will have some type of email marketing component to it. And more often than not, if they don't have it built in, uh, or it is an additional feature, you can uh, work with uh, another kind of company and be able to integrate that into whatever website you're working on. And LA Optimize is for they have free resources for uh, online marketing and website building and all that kind of stuff uh, for businesses that were open before COVID. Uh, and they provide a robust service as a nonprofit to help small businesses with all of these things to keep your cost of customer acquisition down, because like MailChimp, Klaviyo, Constant Contact, all of these have their subscription models, and they have different tiers of what you can and can't do on those, and they can be pretty costly. So if you can deal with if you've been open long enough, you can go with LA Optimize. Brand LA doesn't have those uh, restrictions or requirements where you have to be open before COVID. So you can request from them. They do this similar type of thing as a nonprofit for small businesses. And you could have opened after COVID, and you'll still be able to get resources. Try Brand LA for building and maintaining your website. Maintaining, I'm not sure. But if you have a library card and you are willing to learn, they have a LinkedIn Learning account for free that you can access. And they also have like Gale University and Universal Class and a couple other online resources as well. And you can learn how to do all that stuff. Like you can learn how to code or build or maintain website or all of these types of topics you can get really robust information on. But if you have the budget, then you can look for uh, outsourcing and get a company that specializes in that. But do your homework and make sure they're people you want to work with.